Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Couch Scouts podcast. I'm your host, Matt Jackson. No Matt Cooper with us tonight. He is on a retreat with some college kids, but don't you worry, guys. We've got Matthew Rupert here with us. And for a special treat, we're bringing in a guest, our very first guest of the podcast. His name's John. He goes by on Twitter as Fosbury64. John, Matt, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Yeah, doing awesome. Awesome. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you on, man. I'm excited to introduce the Couch Scouts world to our quarterback guru. For those that don't know, he's the one that's helping us out with all of our quarterback grades. He's the one that's developed kind of our quarterback grading system. So that I'm excited to have him on because tonight what we're going to be doing is continuing our Inside the Prospect series, looking at the quarterback position. And we're looking at two guys that, by all accounts, and for most people in the draft circle, are at the top of the draft boards. There's a question over who's the number two guy for a lot of these people, who's going to go number two in the draft, and then who we should draft in our upcoming rookie draft. So I'm excited to dive into these guys. And, of course, that is UNC's Drake Maye and LSU's Jayden Daniels. Just to go over the way that we grade some of these guys, I know we've been talking about running backs and the wide receiver position, but quarterback's a little different. I'm sure you guys could agree. There's a lot more between the ears and a lot of stuff that we need to grade differently when it comes to quarterback. So what we're going to be talking about tonight, one of the first things that we grade is processing. Do they go through the progressions? What does their diagnosing of the defense look like? Their off-script playmaking, things like that. Then we look at arm talent, anticipation of throws, accuracy, their deep ball, and then arm power are some of the things that we're looking at. We're going to talk about some mechanics. So what does the release and lower body movements look like? And then moving on, we'll finish up with talking about their pocket presence and then their mobility. What do they look like scrambling and making plays in the run game? So I'm excited to talk about these guys. You guys ready to dive into some Drake Maye?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So Drake Maye, of course, is a 6'4", 223-pound redshirt sophomore. He's a former five-star prospect and the number 4 quarterback in his class. Of course, took over for Sam Howell, and man, he absolutely ran away with it in his first season, starting with over 4,000 yards, a 38-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Regressed a little bit this year with 3,608 passing yards, 24-9 touchdown to interception ratio. And the first thing we'll start off is the processing, his progression, diagnosing of the defense, and off-script playmaking. And Foz, since you're our QB guru, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to throw it to you. What do you notice about Drake Maye's processing?
Yeah, I mean, his processing has definitely some room to improve from what I've seen. With North Carolina's offense, it's much more of a catch and throw style offense where the quarterback's going to get the ball. It's kind of predetermined already where he's going to go for it go with the ball at the snap. And so he's getting it and getting rid of it like almost instantly a lot of the time. So I think there is some room to grow there. A lot of times when the play breaks down, he's able to, use his feet to keep the play going. But there's one play in particular that stuck out to me when I was watching his film. And I think it was Virginia in 2022 where, you have Virginia in a too high safety shell. So the quarterback's going to look like he's got two safeties like deep. He's going to be expecting, high coverage. And then at the snap, they rotate one of the safeties down. It becomes a cover 3 look. But the play call is designed to beat it with 4 verticals, one going up the seam, and he just totally missed it. He totally did not see the safety coming down, and the other weren't rotating on the top. And that just, stuff like that gives me a lot of concerns, especially when you go up to the next level. So his processing grade for me graded out kind of like, if we're grading on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being great, it was around like a 6-ish with like room to improve, especially of like between him and Daniels, like definitely room to improve with him.
Yeah, I was noticing a lot of the times he didn't really feel like he went through his progression a lot of times. It felt like the first guy that was supposed to get the ball was the one that he threw the ball to. I noticed him staring down a lot of his receivers a lot, and oftentimes that was to the detriment of him because he would miss wide open receivers that were cutting across the field, right? He just wouldn't hit those guys. Rupert, did you notice anything similar, or did you notice something different when it came to his processing skills?
I noticed the exact same thing, and it's hard to project how he's going to translate to the NFL because of UNC's system. It wasn't like John said, it was a lot of times predetermined where he was going to go. And normally, like if he didn't, have his first read open, he'd start scrambling or kind of like freaking out. I kind of noted it as like happy feet, like he's always like looking to escape. And a lot of times it seems like that's due to their pretty porous offensive line. He was under duress a lot this year, and that was evident. And I think it's going to take some time for him to kind of reacclimate. He's going to need a good offensive line in front of him to kind of help him get over this and be able to sit in the pocket, trust the pocket, and actually go 1, 2, 3, 4 through his progressions. I didn't see it as awful, but I would say it was pretty mid.
There's definitely room to improve, like John was talking about.
Yeah.
I think that's evident. We're all kind of saying the same thing. Moving to his arm talent, I think this was a mixed bag, right? Because his deep ball it looks incredible, right? He's got the arm. He can hit deep balls down the field. He looks great. I mean, he's got the arm strength that you want him to have. But, man, was his accuracy just absolutely all over the place. I mean, throwing the ball behind guys, not leading his receivers. I mean, in the short areas, maybe like 10 to 20 yards. I mean, his accuracy was just all over the place. John, what did you notice about his arm talent?
Yeah, I mean, the deep ball thing is real. It's a strength. Like, and he has like zip on the ball. Like, the ball's not going to die off his hand. He has a lot of issues throwing to the right greater than 10 yards. I was doing some numbers just to compare, and he was 16 or 51 this year throwing the ball to his right with 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Just to compare it to Daniels. Daniels was 25 for 36 with 9 touchdowns and 1 pick, and then J.J. McCarthy was 18 for 25 with 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. And particularly, like, just 2 real brutal interceptions against Minnesota. Like, yeah. I wrote them down there like Zach Wilson-esque. Like, they're like in between both receivers. There's no play to be made, and there's no reason to get rid of the ball. And he just gets rid of it for whatever reason. And it's the arm talent's not going to save him going to the right, especially.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed a lot of the same things, but I think a lot of it has to tie into his pretty poor footwork. And like I mentioned earlier, like, he has really heavy feet. His feet are kind of all over the place. And I'd really like to see him, kind of stand there with a strong base, use proper hitches. And I think that would solve a lot of his accuracy issues. He's got all the arm talent in the world. It's very evident seeing, his throws, like what the hype is all about. I remember when Mr. Trubisky was coming out, being an NC State guy, being like, why are they hyping up this UNC quarterback? Like, I just don't see it. At least with Drake Maye, I'm like, I can see what the hype is about. There's some issues to be fixed, but that ceiling is really high with him. I noticed the same thing. He'll throw high and outside a good bit, but most of the time I feel like it's just time back to his feet work. So I don't think it has really anything to do with his arm talent. I think he has all the arm talent to be accurate. I think he just needs to clean up his footwork.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're up the footwork too, because like I noticed like it's like he falls backwards when he's throwing. Kind of sometimes it's like just set your feet and do it. And I found this interesting.
I think that goes back to like he just kind of has PTSD from his pocket collapsing all the time. Like he's always like, I'm about to get hit. I'm about to get hit. Like might as well start leaning back.
And that's why I kind of mentioned it was a mixed bag, right? Like he has accuracy issues. I was watching the NC State game, and it felt like. I mean, that was a rough game to watch anyway, but it felt like he was missing throws, like missed 4 or 5 throws in a row. So that drives you crazy, right? And then he does something spectacular, like push the ball 50 yards down the field for a walk-in touchdown. So it's like you're getting both sides of this, and it's an area of concern, but you can see why he has such a high upside, because the upside is there. You guys mentioned it a little bit, and I just kind of want to talk about it. Since we're kind of there already, his mechanics, his lower body, and the way he looks, tight arm, you want these guys to have a tight arm angle, to throw the ball with zip. You want their feet to look good, to plant their feet, to face the receiver. What did you guys notice mechanic wise that we haven't mentioned already?
I think I really like his upper body is like great in terms of mechanics. I feel like it's really tight. He like flicks it like out there almost, and he doesn't lose any velocity or anything like that. And I think to what Rupert was saying, like his footwork is like the key. If someone can fix his footwork, like, he's got he still has a lot of potential in his arm there without.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on, pocket presence. What did you guys see for this? How did he look in the pocket when the pocket was actually there? And I know Rupert was talking about that a minute. When he was actually in the pocket, what did you guys notice about him being able to feel pressure, to move up in the pocket, to extend the play? I'll start with you, Rupert.
I think he really struggled here, and I think it's just, a result of it collapsing all the time. I did see like little glimpses, like where he can move subtly, do that little, kind of like sidestep to avoid like a blitzing linebacker up the middle. He'll sidestep, hold the ball close, protect the ball well, and then get the ball out. So I did see that a couple times, which was really encouraging. That was, pretty high level quarterbacking, but most of the time he's not trusting the pocket. He's looking to run right away. Sometimes he ends up being the reason why the pocket collapses. Like there's a pocket there, but he starts to, move out to the left or something, and the left tackle doesn't know. So then he ends up, having to run for his life. So I think he really didn't set up his O-line well sometimes with his kind of jitterbugness back there. But overall, I thought this is an area he really is going to have to improve, and I think it's going to take some time in the NFL.
John, did you notice the same thing or anything different there?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with like when it breaks down, like it really breaks down for him. Like you can tell he's kind of got a little bit of panic in him. And I think that's evident in a lot of like the interceptions he throws. Like he doesn't throw any, like he throws a lot of interceptions and is like inaccurate, like, and mostly because of like pressure. But when he's kept clean, he's great. I did also notice the subtle stuff where like he can really manipulate that pocket if it's not like a total disaster. He knows how to like subtly shift himself and still deliver the ball and keep his eyes downfield. He does a great job. He does a great job with that. Like the little pocket movement, the bigger stuff. Like he's never going to be like a Patrick Mahomes or like a, like someone like that who can, just break out and still do it.
Yeah. I mean, I did notice, he had a few plays where he made some great throws on the run, but mostly it feels like when he gets pressured, when the pocket is collapsing, it leads to some pretty poorly thrown balls for obvious reasons. And that's an area of concern for me. It's something that, you don't like to see for somebody that's being talked about as, the number 2 quarterback potentially in this draft. One thing that he did – go ahead.
I was just gonna say one thing, like relating to that, like the pocket presence and the accuracy. Like one, like really interesting stat I saw, like when I was comparing, like JJ McCarthy had a better completion percentage when he was under pressure than Drake Maye had, like overall, like just normal. Like it's crazy. It's crazy, right? Like so there's the accuracy issues and the pressure issues really have to improve.
Yeah, one area that he did really look strong in was his mobility. Right, he's not a guy like we're going to talk about in Jayden Daniels who can go and run for 150, 200 yards in a game. But, his mobility, his speed is really deceptive. He goes out there. He's a hard-nosed runner. He can go out there and looks faster than he actually is and get you a good 10, 15, 20 even yard run. He's an athletic quarterback. And this was something that I noted all over his tape. He seems like the type of guy that can go out there and pretty easily get you 50, 60 yards rushing on the ground in any given game. And what does that translate? That translates to fantasy points. So that's something that I love seeing in his game. Foz, John, you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, the rushing equity is going to be nice. Like, again, he's not like, he's not going to run people over. He's not going to like make people miss and like have a highlight reel type of run. But when the plays are there to be made, like he's gonna be able to get you a chunk of 10 or 15 when you need them, and those add up over the course of a game. And so if you're looking at it from a fantasy perspective, where that rushing floor is getting you an extra 6 or 7 points here and there, like that's gonna be huge, in terms of his fantasy outlook.
Agreed. He was more athletic than I was anticipating going in. Really reminded me of Andrew Luck's athleticism. Real big guy. Can kind of run you over if he needs to. And, he accelerates pretty quickly. He kind of get out of the pocket and, get 5 yards up the field pretty quickly. I don't think they're going to be designing like, runs for him per se, but I think he's going to have a lot of those kind of third down, back breaking defensive plays where he just gets out of the pocket and scrambles for 12 yards, gets a first down, and can sustain a drive. So really like that part of his game. It's going to be a lot of upside. It seems like, especially with like the way he kind of runs out of the pocket pretty quickly, I think he's going to have a pretty good base floor in the NFL for fantasy.
So I think we can all agree, right? This guy's, he's obviously projected as a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Where do you guys feel comfortable drafting him in your Superflex drafts? And then I want to start with you, John, because I read your article on Drake Maye. For anybody that hasn't read that, Go and check it out. It's on his Twitter, Fosbury64. Check out that article because he makes a really interesting comp here. I'm not going to spoil it, but John, I want you to give me your comp and what you project him at the NFL level because I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean he's skinny Josh Allen. That's exactly what it is. Power 5 skinny Josh Allen. He's got accuracy issues, but mobility all over the place. He's got the deep ball arm. And what he's deserving of one of these top 5 picks, like in the NFL draft for sure. And in your super flex drafts, you should take him mid-first round. Like I'd be more than comfortable. I could hear arguments for taking him higher, I guess, depending on the landing spot. But yeah, he's going to need some coaching for sure, some developing. If he could sit for a year, like I think, when you look at Josh Allen's first 2 seasons, he needed to sit for a year. He was underwater when it came to turnover-worthy plays versus big-time throws. If you're looking at the PFF data, his completion percentage was in the 50s. And then it took getting offensive genius with Daboll.
Until Daboll got a hold of him, he looked like he was out the door.
Yeah, it was grim. It was grim after the first season, especially. And then the second year, he was the QB8 and lived on his rushing equity really alone because the arm was just not doing it for him. So like if Maye goes to a place with an established system that's going to play to his strengths of getting the ball out quickly and has someone a receiver that can win deep, like the Bills got with Diggs, the sky's the limit. Like, I have no problem projecting him like year 2 or 3 going in like start hitting that top 7, top 8 fantasy place. But it's like, it's one of those things where he could really, if we could be sitting here 2 years from now being like, Maye might be a guy we got to get rid of and get off, like it's like that. It could go anyway, depending on where he lands. And I'm really looking anywhere but Washington. That's what I think. Anywhere but Washington.
Explodes and becomes like a top 12 dynasty quarterback. Like I could see that path too, because he's got the traits that you like. So I think the Josh Allen comp was amazing because I mean for better or worse, and I do mean that for better and for the worse. Like he looks like Josh Allen on the football field when he was in college.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
Yeah, my comp for him is actually Carson Wentz, which is pretty similar. Like it could be pre-injury Carson Wentz that looked like he was going to take over the league, or the guy that's gone through multiple teams now. I 100% agree. Like he needs to sit a year, in my opinion, kind of get over the PTSD of being behind a bad offensive line, work on his footwork, everything like that. I think a perfect landing spot would be the Vikings trading up for him. Just start Sam Darnold for the year. Let Drake Maye sit or at least until like the end of the year or something like that. That's the ideal landing spot.
The problem is that like the projections, it's either Washington or it's New England, right? And none of those spots look great for what you need to do.
Vikings are going to be trading up for sure. In my opinion.
I would I'm a Boston guy, Patriots fan. I would be kind of happy with New England just because I know Brissett's there and can teach him at least a little bit about being a pro, and I think Van Pelt and McAdoo at least have a little bit of juice with the quarterbacks. But I agree, the Vikings would be the best landing spot, and even the Giants for me too. Just like let them run out the contract on Daniel Jones for a year, and then you have Maye sitting there with Daboll, and then hopefully Daboll can just do enough to keep his job in 2024 for 2025.
I didn't even think about that. That would be a really good one. That's really good.
Moving on, somebody that has when we're talking about fantasy upside, I mean the crazy fantasy upside he has, you've got to talk about Jayden Daniels, right? I mean 6'4", 210-pound senior. He's a former 4-star prospect. He was the number 1 dual threat quarterback in his class when 247 Sports was still doing the dual threat and the regular passer rankings. And reigning Heisman Trophy winner, started with Arizona State before transferring to LSU. Guys, nearly 5,000 yards through the ground and on the air, through the air, with 50 total touchdowns this year. I mean, just absolutely exploded this year. We're going to start, of course, like we did with Drake Maye. We're going to start with his processing, his progression, his diagnosing the defense, and then his all-script playmaking. I don't know about you guys, but when I was watching his processing, one of the things that I really noticed was he goes through his progressions. He wasn't like Drake Maye. He wasn't staring down guys. But one of the things that I kind of noticed about him was he just seemed a second off on some of his processing. Like he wasn't reading the guys and getting the ball exactly when they needed to get the ball to oftentimes make a bigger play than what they got. I'll start with you, John. What did you notice about his processing? Did you see the same thing when it came to him?
100%. He can read the whole field. Like, it's not an issue of him being able to see the whole field. He can, but the timing of everything is late, exactly as you're saying it. Like, there's so many times where, like, his arm talent and his arm strength is bailing him out of what could be interceptions at the next level, because like these little hitch routes on the outside, like, or they're late. They're too late. The guys are stopped and standing there when the ball's released, and that's not going to cut it at the next level. Like, it never does. And that can be like a really big fatal flaw, despite, you know, the potential that he has. Like, it really could be the thing that does him in. I have a big concern with it.
When you get to the next level, the DVs are faster. I mean, they're going to undercut some of those routes that his pure arm strength are getting him through. Rupert, what did you notice about his about this progression or processing skills?
Same. I was more impressed than I was expecting to be. I was totally just going into the film having already studied Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors, to be like, oh, every time he's just going to, you know, predetermine I'm throwing it to Malik this play, or, you know, whatever it may be. But I did see him going left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, hit the check down running back. No one was open. And I was really surprised to see that. I made the same note where I didn't see him making as many anticipation throws. Like, all right, my guy's going to be open in this, you know, hole in the zone defense. I'm going to go ahead and throw it there, even though he's not out of his break yet. I would have loved to have seen a lot of that. If I would have seen more of that, I would be like, man, the sky is the absolute moon for this guy. But I just didn't see it enough. He would try to throw like comeback routes like early, but he was always off on them from the games I watched. But it was always encouraging to see that he can go left to right all the way across the field through his progression. So maybe it's just going to take a little bit more time and study to, you know, kind of get over the top there.
For sure. Moving on, one of the areas that I think he was just so strong in is his arm talent, right? We talked a little bit about the anticipation, and those are problems. But, man, when it comes to his deep ball, it is just so pretty to watch. I saw a stat, and I can't remember where I saw it at or what the stat was, but I mean, he was close to perfect on his like deep balls way down the field. I mean, I looked it up. He was 46% accuracy on 20+ yard throws, which is really good, right? I mean, his deep ball accuracy, I mean, I loved. He's got the arm strength to hit any ball, you know, to hit any receiver anywhere on the field. That's not something that I'm worried about with him. He's got the arm power. Accuracy in short area throws leaves a little to be desired, and we're going to talk a little bit about that when it comes to some footwork and mechanic issues. I mean, I noticed some of those, but man, his deep ball and his downfield accuracy, again, like Maye, makes you just go wow on some of these plays. I'll start with you, John. What did you notice about his arm talent?
I mean, it's special. Like, it's special. Like, you know, on PFF, his completion percentage on throws over 20 yards was like 63%. And some of these other guys in the class are hitting like 40, 50% on those throws. And it's, you know, it's a game changer. Like, it's an absolute game changer. If he can get in a scheme where it's all about the vertical, and they have receivers that are all about the vertical too, like they were at LSU, and they just want to attack the deep part of the field, he's gonna thrive. Like, it's his best trait, other than his rushing. It's his best trait, is being able to hit that deep ball.
Yeah.
And he does it so effortlessly. It's just a little flick, hits the guy right in stride. It's incredible. And he can do it on the run too, which is really special to me. Yeah,
for sure. One thing I want to at least bring up is this. I mean, the first year at LSU, you know, what Brian is saying here, joining late, maybe you talk about this. Can we give him a bit of a break on his first year at LSU, because he had shell shock from the Herm Edwards experiment at LSU? The one great year thing is tricky. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Pause.
It's always tough. I know I will give him a pass for Herm Edwards, because, like, if you look at that team, I think they're like, you know, he played with like Brandon Ayuk and like Rashad White too. And it's just like the team was loaded and they couldn't do anything. So that says a lot about the coaching there. But it's really hard with these fifth-year guys. It's really hard. You know, how much room to grow does he have? Like, if he has mechanical issues and he has, you know, timing and anticipation issues with some of these throws, like, you know, he's developed these habits, and he's going to be, you know, he's entering his age 24 season, I think, in the fall. So it's like, how he's not, his development curve is going to be, you know, a little harder to break at this stage of the game. So I don't want to hold it against him, like the 1 year thing, because it was like stellar and spectacular and he jumps off the tape. but it is something that you have to consider for sure.
I mean, you saw the same thing a little bit with not to make the same LSU comparison, but Joe Burrow did the same thing, right? Doesn't really do a whole lot, was a transfer kid, and then explodes his last year for the Heisman. So it can be done. So it's not something that I'm giving him a lot of slack for.
I know, and it's so hard too because it's like it's LSU, and he's got two like absolute stud receivers, just like Burrow had. It's so funny how it's like the serendipity.
Yeah.
Right.
Moving on, we talked about a little bit his arm mechanics. We kind of mentioned this a little bit, mechanics. This is where I felt like he was a little weak in, right? His lower body didn't always get set for throws that he needed to make. He can make some good throws on the run, but I noticed a lot him throwing off a back shoulder, not getting his feet set. He had lots of wide stances and just mechanics left for me something to be desired. I'll go to you, Rupert. What did you see when it came to his mechanics?
I actually saw the opposite. We watched different games to everyone, so it could just be the games I watched. But I actually really liked his footwork and mechanics there. I thought he did have a wide base, but it was a strong wide base, and that allowed him to kind of get the torque to fit those late throws in there, so they weren't intercepted. And I saw him making really good hitches. Queen, he wasn't, kind of double clicking at the top where, he'd kind of have his feet come together multiple times and throw off the timing. So I actually really liked what I saw out of his footwork.
Well, John, it's time for you to break the tie then, I guess.
I might have to start with Rupert on this one. I was more impressed with his mechanics than I thought than like I was anticipating. I think just like, like he was very set. Like it was almost like, I know, like in golf, they call it like the iron Byron, like, like the automatic swing. There was almost like that at times where it looked like it was pretty smooth. Like I had less issues with his footwork, I think, than I did with Drake Maye. I think Maye has like some like, really like things to work through with his footwork. I think Daniels is like, it's a little less so. He does have his throws where it's like it gets totally away from him, and like it's because his hips are facing one way, his feet are facing the other way, and it's like and you see that too with like McCarthy and Williams. I think the mechanics, like the footwork, is like a theme of this class of they all needing a little bit of improvement in some regard. But overall with Daniels, I was less concerned about that than I was with some of the other things in his game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go back and watch it then. Moving on, pocket presence. I'll start with you, John. What did you notice about his pocket presence, his ability to navigate the pocket, slide up from pressure?
I mean, I know his rushing is a big strength, and part of that is because he's so eager to pull the ball down. I just wish he would keep his eyes downfield a little more, because I feel like there's a lot of plays to be made, and there are times where receivers are just running open, but he's already made the commitment to pull the ball down. And some of it might have to do with LSU line. I know like the front seven on both sides for LSU were just pretty abysmal this year, and that like Maye, that could just be something where like he's just been built over the last 2 years, and like probably from his time as Arizona State too, to be like I gotta just make a play because he's the best player on the field. So I feel like he's got a lot of developing to do, is like, in terms of like keeping his eyes downfield and moving kind of subtly and protecting the ball, like in the pocket too. That ball is pretty loose, like, and that's, you see that when he rushes too, like he's not really good carrying the ball. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions, which is nice, but like, he's got to take care of the ball in the pocket too.
For sure.
Yeah, I noticed the exact same thing. Multiple times, like he's taking off running, I'll pause the tape. I'm like, oh, look, Brian Thomas is breaking open 30 yards down the field. Yeah. Like if he would just, followed like Russell Wilson's like a prime example of like a guy that will take off, but he's always keeping his eyes downfield to kind of find those big shots. The great thing with Daniels, sometimes he can break it off for a home run anyways, when he takes off and runs. But I would like to see him, kind of play more quarterback and, look to make the throws down the field instead of always taking off to run. And I think that's going to help his longevity if he does.
But taking off to run, let's talk about it as one of his strengths. And just moving on to mobility, I mean, I don't think there's a more athletic, faster quarterback in this class than Jayden Daniels, and I don't think that's up for debate. I mean, this dude is dynamic. He's explosive. I mean, he can turn what should be, for most quarterbacks, a 10-yard gain. I mean, he's running 60, 70 yards down the field. I mean, this dude is just so fast, so explosive. And, I mean, he's somebody that's going to get you like Lamar Jackson-esque amount of fantasy points from rushing the ball. I mean, it is insane Aside from his deep ball, this is the strongest area in his game. I'm gonna throw it to you, John. What did you notice about his mobility?
Yeah, I mean, it's just he makes it's like uncanny how you can just get 30 yards before you even realize he's gone. Really, like it's just he's special. He's unique. It's like Mike Vick, Randall Cunningham, Lamar Jackson like type of rushing ability. Like you can't get him. Like there was one play against Florida, they ran just like a run of the mill drive starter, like read option, like give or take, and he took and 75 yards later, it's just like, oh my God, it's like watching yourself play Madden when you're 12 years old. Like, it's crazy.
It's literally prime Mike Vick.
Yeah.
I was going to mention that exact same play. He eliminated there's 3 guys that had an angle on him, and he slipped right through, and it's like they don't even touch him.
Yeah.
I was like, gosh, it really is special, absolutely special. Only guys that kind of touch that is Vic, Lamar, and could make an argument Anthony Richardson as well, even though we didn't get to see a ton of it last year. But yeah, he's going to be really special in that rushing upside.
So factoring in his rushing upside, his deep ball, a lot of the pros we talked about, and some of the cons, right? Some of the things he has to work on. He's being talked about obviously as another top 5 pick, potentially 2, potentially 3. We don't really know who's going to go in that range. I mean, when you talk about fantasy upside, I mean, you've got to seriously take a look at this guy as QB2 in the draft, don't you?
100%.
Yeah, I'd be comfortable taking him QB2 in Superflex for sure.
So here's an interesting question that I want to pose. You are on the clock. You've got a pretty decent QB situation, but it could use some room for improvement. You've got, Caleb Williams goes 1 in Superflex drafts, and you are staring Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jayden Daniels. Who are you taking right now?
Rupert, you first.
I mean, if I could still use improvement at quarterback, I'm going to take Daniels, because if he hits, he's going to be so much more valuable than Marvin Harrison Jr., even if he hits in Superflex. So I got a pretty similar situation where I have the 101, but I'm already pretty set at quarterback. I got Anthony Richardson and Burrow, who both got injured last year. That's why I got the 101. But I'm going to take Williams, because I know even though Marvin Harrison would make my team technically better, I'd still have better value going.
The value you're going to get on the quarterback, especially in Superflex leagues, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
The nature of the beast with Superflex.
Yeah, you can't go broke with Daniels at the 102 in Superflex. Like that, even if you are set, like you could have, whoever you have. Like I think your situation, Rupert, is like a great example. Like you could be totally set for the future, but you still got to take him just because someone's gonna need him, and if you need to flip him for CeeDee Lamb or whatever to win a title, you do that. At some point.
Exactly.
For sure. Well, that about does it for tonight, guys. John, appreciate you joining us and talking quarterbacks as we break down, the first quarterback episode of this Inside the Prospect series. I had a great time. A lot of valuable information here. If you guys are interested in watching the game film that we are watching, that we're scouting these guys, forgot to mention this at the top of the show, but join Dynasty Nerds Film Room. Use code COOP to gain 15% off on that. You can go and watch all the All-22 film that we scouted and scout these guys by yourself. Be a couch scout just like us. If you guys are interested in making some of the cut-ups you see on Twitter that we're producing, we're part of Opus. Make sure you guys subscribe to that. We'll have a link to that in our show sheet. And guys, our Discord has been absolutely hopping today. If you guys are not in on the Discord, we've had so many new people join over the last day. It's been a blast. We've been on there talking absolutely all day. So if you guys aren't a part of the Discord, we'll make sure to link that in our show description on Twitter as well. Get in there, join some of the fun. Other than that, I'll start with you, John. Why don't you tell the people where they can find you on Twitter, on X, and all the great stuff that you're doing with your articles?
Yeah. I'm on the artist formerly known as Twitter. I'm at Fosbury64, FOZ berry, like the fruit, and then the number 64. So give me a follow. Chop up with my hot fantasy football takes. I get stuff right and I get stuff wrong like everybody else, but I trust my process.
Also, Rupert, where can they find you on Twitter /X?
You can find me at Matthew Rupert FF.
Awesome. You guys can find me at Devi Matt. If you guys are listening to this show on Apple Podcasts, we'd love for you to come over to our YouTube page. And it's Couch Scouts on YouTube. We'd love for you to join us on that. Watch some of the videos. If you want to see our ugly mugs in person, you can watch there on the YouTube page. We'll have several videos that we're producing, just breaking down more of these guys in depth as well. And if you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, we'd love for you to rate, review, give us a 5-star rating. That's how people see this show. Like and subscribe on YouTube as well. It's free. You don't have to pay anything for that, but we hope to just cut it up with you guys more, talk more. But like I said earlier, join our Discord. We'd love to interact with you guys, get to know some of you guys. But until next time, we will be back with you guys again for the next Couch Scouts episode next week. We'll see you guys later.
See y'all.
All right. Thanks, Max. See you later.